Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NRRL's Monday 50% division. I'm your commentator, your solo commentator today, Jack. It is a pleasure to be here, and today we are here for round one of season one. This is the Qatar Grand Prix. Today, coming up for you, we have a one-shot qualifying followed by a sprint race and then a 50% Grand Prix. It should be interesting. It should be good to watch. Here we go then for one-shot qualifying. Obviously quite hard to keep up with who is at the top and who's at the bottom in a one-shot qualifying. It takes a little bit of time to move through the drivers while we're spectating. But Qatar, a very high-speed circuit. We saw it come to the F1 calendar in 2021 and it has produced thrillers. Chances of a safety car aren't too high here because the walls are so far away. It's very hard for someone to DNF. But as we now come towards the end of the first sector, who will have the best time? And as we come to the split, it is Sean, and currently it is a Aston Martin 1-2. So incredibly interesting as we go through. 14 drivers tonight, as you can see in the top left of your screen. Should be a good race. Obviously, we've got a sprint race as well. But the two Aston Martins look to be jockeying for pole position. Michaela and Josh are also in there as well. Dan Lovett is also in that fight. This is a very crucial session because Qatar qualifying can be important as we now come through the Sector 2 split and towards the end of Sector 3. It does look like it's going to be Sean who takes pole position and potentially an Aston Martin 1-2 as they come to the line. Now, Sean does go to pole. Somehow, Josh just sneaks into P2 just ahead of Finn by a couple of hundredths of a second. But it is Sean who is on pole position. Incredible lap from the Aston Martin driver. Very well driven. A 10th clear of the field. There you see the gap between Josh and Finn. Michaela manages to slot it in P4. I Have No Grip is P5. Gavboy 6th. Dan Lovett is in 7th. Meldrum in 8th. Kevin Baker in 9th. Wiz Jokies in 10th. Bruiser in 11th. Paul Codd in 12th. Altheniel in 13th. And Sheldon was disqualified. Well, very quick start to the stream then there, ladies and gentlemen. But we will now have, I believe, a bit of a break before the start of the sprint. It is an Aston Martin 1-3, Sean on pole position. And this will be an epic event coming up for you. Now, I would like to plug, while we're just in this sort of downtime, there are many days this week of NRRL action coming to you. We have today, which is our 50% division on Mondays. We then have Wednesdays, which we saw slowly getting introduced, and they will start this week as well. That will be a short quali and a 50% race. On Thursdays, it is the exact same, a short quali and a 50% race. On Fridays, we have our short qualifying followed by a 100% race. On Saturdays, it is the F2 action, a sprint race and a feature race with a one-shot qualifying like we see tonight. And then on Sundays is the big one, the NRRL 100%. It's a short quali 100% race, the main tier for it, and that is where most of the action is. However, obviously 6 days coming to you this week live from NRRL. If you are interested, drop a follow down below. We are looking to get as many people in as we can. One of the fastest growing racing leagues in F1 at the moment. If you are interested in joining the league yourself and racing, please do head over to the Instagram or the TikTok where you can find all the information attached. But here we go then. 5 red lights ahead of the drivers before the Qatar sprint. And Sean has a terrible start from pole position, and that is immediately going to promote Josh into the lead. We've got Finn, who is now in second. Michaela up in third. Gavboy is fighting with Dan Lovett for fifth. And they are wheel to wheel as we come through the start of the first sector. Dan Lovett wins that one out and is up to 4th. We've got Wiz Jokies up to 5th. The pole sitter, Sean, is all the way down in 7th as we ride on board. Trying to go around the outside and goes wide and off the track. And that's going to put Sheldon up his inside. Now turns to the outside. Sheldon braking much later. And the pole sitter is down to 8th. We've got a car going off there. That's Altheniel, who manages to get back on the track completely fine. But an early lead for Josh, and the pole sitter flying down the order, already down to 8th, and now under pressure from Meldrum. Incredible stuff in the start of this Qatar sprint. Let's get the details up now then. On the tyres, we've got Michaela and Sean, who are on the mediums. Everyone else electing for the softs. So that will be interesting as we see Michaela, who is in P3, currently running well within the DRS of Finn ahead. Obviously, no DRS this lap. DRS will be enabled next lap. Only one DRS zone around this track, and that is the straight that we are on at the minute. Very interesting to see. Will the softs die out? And Michaela, who has been absolutely charging, he has been in... He won both F2 races on Saturday. He was well up there last night in the 100% division. He has really had a turn of speed as Sean and Sheldon are really going for it here. Jockeying for position in the first sector. Sean manages to win that battle out and regains 7th place. Now looks to set after Wiz Jokies for 6th. We've got Dan Lovett in 4th, who is really putting the pressure on Michaela. On the soft tyres is Dan. On the mediums is Michaela as Sean picks up a 3-second time penalty. Very easy to pick up penalties around this track. Under the lights here in Qatar. Great way to start the season. And Josh with an early lead. But Finn is sticking with him all throughout so far. And he is going to be close enough. Dan Lovett well close enough to try and get up to the back of the Michaela. Maybe those mediums not working as he'd want to so far as Meldrum picks up a time penalty. But here we go to the main straight then. It's more battery for Finn than Josh. And here we go. Josh elects to go to the outside. And before turn 1 even comes, he takes the lead of the Qatar sprint. And one Aston Martin struggles is another one's fortune as Sean currently in 6th. Fighting away with Wiz Jokies and Gavboy. His teammate Finn moves up to the lead. Dan Lovett is still stuck behind Michaela for the time being. And Sean now moves himself up to 5th. So the mediums on that Aston Martin, evidently working well as we see Wiz Jokies go a bit wide there and lose out to Sheldon. And now he's got Meldrum in the Alpine all over the back of him. I have no grip is on the back of this. We've got Altheniel, who is a little bit behind, as is Paul Codd. But out in front, Finn Joe absolutely flying. Josh is burning a hell of a lot of battery. And that is the thing. We've seen Josh really be up there fighting with the leaders before. He just doesn't really have that, I almost want to say, experience of being at the front and managing the ERS. He's normally down in the lower stages of the ERS battery deployment. As we see here, neither of them really have much. But Josh will have the DRS. Can he regain his lead? To turn 1, we look to go now. Is there enough gain on board with the Alpine, He gaining toward the Aston Martin. Is there enough room to go around the outside? The car just not sticking as Josh would want to. He isn't able to make that move. Dan Lovett still behind Michaela. Sean fending off from Gavboy is Sheldon and Wiz Jokies wheel to wheel through the first sector. Who's going to win that one out? Sheldon running very wide and coming back on the track, and that is going to allow Meldrum into this fight as they all concertina up into the next couple of corners, and there is contact there, and Meldrum loses a bit of his front wing. At a track that is so important to have as much downforce as you can, as much as there are straight lines and you are full throttle for nearly 80% of the lap around here. Downforce so important. Meldrum picking up damage on lap 4. That will not be ideal for him. Interestingly, Sean is really starting to reel in Dan Lovett. Dan obviously on the softs. Sean and Michaela on the mediums. Michaela has been holding Dan off as Josh in the second place, challenging for the lead, picks up a penalty, and that is going to harm his chances of a race win. But he is a little bit closer to Finn than he was last lap. Is there enough of a gap? He is much closer, and he is going to go to the inside as the Alpine, and on lap 5, after losing the lead on, I believe it was lap 3, regains it back. There is a little bit of contact as the Aston tries to go back round the outside. A beautiful move from Finn Joe 08, and he manages to reclaim the lead mere corners after it was taken. Dan Lovett is still in behind Michaela, but Sean is really gaining. So are the mediums starting to become the preferable tyre? Gavboy is falling off this battle. I Have No Grip is trying to get past Sheldon, and with Jokies is behind that. Meldrum obviously struggling with the damage on that Alpine. And then we've got Nathaniel and Paul Codd, who are just a little bit behind. We've got Kevin Baker, who is trying to battle Bruiser. Out at the front, though, incredible action between the top two. And Josh is looking to try and best the Alpine, but obviously with that penalty, it is very difficult. Dan Lovett is actually falling off the back of Michaela here, and Sean is getting very, very close to the back of the Haas. So we could see an overtake here, and this would really signal that the mediums are better. And into the final corner, down the inside goes Sean, running wide goes Dan Lovett, and the medium runner, Aston Martin driver of Sean, moves himself up into 4th place. And it is now the two medium runners, Michaela and Sean, who battle it out. Finn and Josh, are really battling away again, and there is contact this time. Josh loses out in that one. Finn manages to retain the lead, but this is only going to bring Michaela all the way back into the fight. And like we say, we think the mediums are starting to be the preferable tyre. And if that is bringing Michaela back into it, there is definitely a chance he will be challenging for the race win. Sean, like I say, in 4th. Dan Lovett is falling off of this battle. We have seen Dan Lovett have struggles in the past with tyre management, burning out his tyres, maybe using a little too much early on, and then struggling towards the end of stints. And that looks to be what is happening under the lights tonight. The Haas currently running a lonely race in 5th after that early gain. But Sean, the pole sitter, looking to reclaim what was his. He is gaining on Michaela. Michaela is in the DRS of Josh. And Josh, I do believe, has just fallen out of the DRS duct of Finn. He has. So Michaela with the DRS, Josh without the DRS. I don't think he is close enough to make a move, but Sean is really beginning to gain on the Sauber towards turn 1. That later turn in to hit the apex later in the corner, which you would assume is preferable, as we see a car, I believe, is that coming into the pits? No, it's Meldrum, who is actually spun down the main straight and is now coming into the pits to change the front wing. So that will be his sprint over. Obviously, only 3 laps of this sprint to go. And Meldrum with a torrid Qatar sprint race. But out of the front once more, as I keep saying, the battle ensues. Finn is starting to gain away now. Michaela very close to Josh. Sean even closer to Michaela. So this 3-way battle for second. We know it with the penalties that Michaela on course to take second, and Sean will drop down behind Dan Lovett as things stand. But obviously with 3 laps left, anything can happen. Josh again will not be in the DRS of Finn. Finn is pulling that gap away very, very nicely. We will ride on board with Sean towards the final corner and now down the main straight, taking all of the curb through the final corner. Who is going to be closest to attack? It looks like Sean is closer, but Michela is gaining because Josh doesn't have the DRS. And is he going to look to the inside? Yes, he is. And on lap 8, a battle for second. Mediums versus softs. Who will win? And Sean is on the back of this, waiting to see what happens. We'll ride on board with the Aston Martin driver as Michela picks up a penalty. So now all of them squabbling for track position. Finjo is running away with this one, and Michela throws it down the inside of the Alpine, takes the position. Now over to you, Sean, trying to execute the undercut. He gets the traction, but a little snap on the exit. Now switches to the inside again. And Josh runs a little bit wide in the Alpine. Now they're wheel to wheel towards the next left-hander. Josh has to back out. Incredible moves between second, third and fourth. Michela up to second. Sean up to third. Josh down to fourth. Incredible stuff. On lap 8 of this Grand Prix, the mediums really starting to work well. But with all of them having penalties, Dan Lovett is still in that fight if he can stay there. And Finn is really starting to look like he is going to capitalise and win the first sprint of the season. We've got Meldrum on 9 seconds of penalties. Nathaniel and Josh on 6 seconds of penalties. And then we've got Sean, who is now past Michela. Also, him and Michela, Wiz Jokies and Kevin Baker, all on 3 seconds. So, interesting stuff. Up and down the grid. Josh with a 6-second penalty. Again, will still be losing out to Dan Lovett. We've got about a lap and a half to go of this sprint. But if Dan Lovett can keep in that 6-second window, and not get himself a penalty, he will be inheriting 4th position. Michela and Sean battling this one out on track, but Finjo in the Aston Martin running away with this, doing everything he needs to win the first event of the season, take the championship lead inevitably, and win the Qatar sprint. Sean looking to make it an Aston Martin 1-2. We saw for a long, long time in qualifying, it was an Aston Martin 1-2. Josh managed to split them. And on the grid, when the lights went out, Sean with a horrible, horrible start. I'm not sure what happened to him, but a terrible start bogged him down all the way down to 8th. But he has fought his way back up and now battles for second. But here we go then. On to the final lap of the sprint. Sean trying to defend, but not many tools at his disposal. The DRS very powerful around here. And here comes Michela towards turn 1. The outside he chooses. Is there enough grip for him? The answer is yes. They touch wheels as they come through turn 1 and now to turn 2. The Aston is forced onto the curb. Somehow manages to stay ahead. Incredible defending from Sean. He keeps the position for now. Michela runs wide. Dan Lovett is still doing enough to try and stay within that penalty window of Josh, who has really fallen off the back of this battle. These two are now starting to gain on Finn, but it isn't going to be enough. And maybe, although with Finn now getting the penalty, is there to be late drama in this sprint? Because if Sean can gain and pass in this final sector, he will win the sprint. Very, very close between the top 3, but it does look like it's going to be Finn who will take home the sprint. It's the first round of the season, the first event of the season. The Aston Martin driver took the lead when he needed to, did everything perfectly, and it is going to be Finn who takes home the first event of the season and wins the Qatar sprint. He crosses the line. No, he doesn't. He slowed down. What happened there? I could not tell you what happened. Did he run out? He might have run out of fuel at the end. So it's going to be Sean that wins the Qatar sprint. Michela comes home second. Finjo finishes in third after leading nearly the whole thing. Dan Lovett does hold on to finish 4th ahead of Josh. I Have No Grip is 6th. Wiz Jokey 7th. Sheldon in 8th. Gavboy 9th. Kevin Baker 10th for a McLaren 910. Bruiser 11th. Paul Codd in 12th. Meldrum will finish 13th ahead of Nathaniel in 14th. But what happened at the line there? I can only imagine that Finn ran out of fuel. Incredible stuff. We thought he was going to take home the first event of the season. He led nearly the entire thing, but slowed down on the line. I cannot believe that. Wow. I truly do not know what to say about what I've just seen. I'm relatively sure because he wouldn't have given that up. Because he knew he would have lost out to McKellar as well. So he's got to run out of fuel. Wow. I truly don't know what to say. I am absolutely gobsmacked. I'm just looking through the general chats now, just to see what happened. Yes, Finn ran out of fuel. So Finn, after leading for so long, ran out of fuel at the line, and Sean somehow comes through to take the win. An incredible sprint race here in Qatar tonight. Season 1, round 1. What a way to kick it off. And there are your results then. Sean wins the sprint from McKellar. Late drama for Finn. Running out of fuel. Finishes in 3rd. Dan Lovett finishes in 4th with Josh in 5th. I have no grip in 6th with Jokies in 7th and Sheldon taking the final points paying position. But now, all eyes towards the main race. Late drama there in that sprint with Finn running out of fuel. And he will be looking to recapitalise. But I do believe that the grid will be decided by the sprint order. So back-to-back pole positions for Sean. McKellar will promote himself to 2nd. The big loser in the top 4 there is Josh, who will go from 2nd to 4th. We'll have Finn in 3rd. I just cannot believe that late drama. Running out of fuel across the line and losing the sprint victory. Now, I don't know if there is another qualifying before the actual race. Obviously, in real life, we have an actual qualifying for the sprint. And then we have the actual sprint. Then we have Grand Prix qualifying and then qualifying. I don't know if that's the case here. I want to say it is. So we might have another one-shot qualifying for these drivers. And if it is Sean to be the man to take pole position, he will be praying he does not have a similar start to the initial Grand Prix. Because he was bogged down. I don't know what the issue was. But yes, we do have another one-shot qualifying then. And here we go all over again. For these 14 drivers, Sean initially does take the lead. Like I say, quite hard to cover a one-shot qualifying. But the Aston Martins we know were doing well. We knew Josh did well. We also know the likes of Dan Lovett will be up there. Finn Joe also climbing the ranks. I have no grip. Goes fastest in the first sector, I believe. So he's definitely found a turn of pace somewhere. We've got Dan Lovett up in 3rd, jockeying for position with Finn. McKellar now moves himself up to 4th. Kevin Baker having a better session so far. Josh must have made a mistake. And let's have a look at him. He invalidated. So the man that was 2nd on the grid in the sprint qualifying will start best 13th in the actual Grand Prix. Obviously, a lot of laps to make up time in Qatar. You definitely can overtake at. But Josh will start best for 13th. And that will be heartbreaking stuff for the Alpine driver. But Sean, as we now come through the final sector, does look to have the best of the rest. As Finn actually moves himself up to 2nd again. As I believe I have no grip invalidated. The man that was in 2nd place. So are we going to get the fabled Aston Martin 1-2? No, we're not. Because somehow McKellar manages to take it at the line. It's a great lap from Sean. I believe that was about 4/10 clear of the rest of the field. So incredible stuff from him. McKellar splits the 2 Aston Martins. And there we go then. Dan Lovett in 4th place. Kevin Baker in 5th with Gavboy in 6th. It's a McLaren 5-6 with Jokies in 7th. But heartbreak for I Have No Grip and Josh, who were both up towards the sharp end and both invalidated. And 3.5 tenths clear is Sean. If he can have a good start, unlike the sprint, it will be an incredible feat to see, as I don't believe anybody will be able to touch that. There is your Grand Prix qualifying order then. And now all eyes towards the Grand Prix. I believe there's 29 laps coming up for you of this event. Incredible stuff up and down the grid. And we will see now what transpires in the Grand Prix. We saw the sprint. We saw the carnage. There was a little bit of contact here and there. But this is where the real points are scored. Inevitably, with that win, Sean will be the championship leader as we go into this Grand Prix. We will have all drivers jockeying for positions, though 14 drivers here tonight, and they will be doing their best and doing their bit to start the season off strong. I do believe we have a bit of a break between the qualifying, and the Grand Prix. So we get a little bit of a time just to relax, take in what we've just seen. But overall, an incredible sprint race, and obviously the tyre wear, very dismal for those soft runners in the sprint. There was only 2 medium runners, and they finished 1-2, even after Sean's start. And that is the point that I do want to make, is that Sean obviously qualified on pole position, dropped down to 8th, I think, on the first lap. And it must have been by about lap 3 or lap 4, he'd made his way back up to the lead fight. So even if we do have another start like that from Sean, he will most certainly be looking to gain positions. But the man starting on pole, the Aston Martin, it is 1-3 for them. And they will look to capitalise on that and take an early Constructors' Championship lead. We've also got the likes of Alpine with Josh and Meldrum. Obviously, with it being a 14-car grid, not everyone's got a teammate. You look to people like Dan Lovett, who is the lone Haas. We've got the McLarens, who are together and were both next to each other in qualifying. They will be trying their best to get as many Constructors' Championship points as possible. Like I mentioned, Alpine with Meldrum and Josh, who were both up there, but unfortunately Josh invalidated and Meldrum not with the best lap of his career. So they'll be starting a bit down the order, looking to gain. Aston Martin obviously look best placed, but they need to avoid mistakes because that is what cost them a 1-2. Sean's start, Finn running out of fuel. They need to avoid that happening again. Otherwise, it is going to be very difficult for them to maintain that lead and gaps to the others because DRS is so powerful around this circuit. It would be very difficult to imagine if you fall out of it that you're really going to gain any time, especially if you're trying to gain on someone that has DRS ahead of you. Like I say, we will be going in a few minutes, just waiting for the 5-minute break to end before the Grand Prix starts. I do believe it's 29 laps of the Qatar Grand Prix that is forthcoming. And it shall be an interesting race. I would again like to plug the rest of the league, although we don't have time as we do have 5 red lights ahead of the drivers for the Qatar Grand Prix, and Sean does get away well from pole position. But Michela is right alongside him, and into turn 1 we go. Michela does get the Sauber ahead and into the lead. Sean manages to retain second. He's jockeying for position with his teammate Finn. Dan Lovett is in 4th as we see Altheniel already getting a 10-second penalty for a severe collision. They all seem to be through okay though. No damage so far as we see Gavboy and Wiz Jokies going wheel to wheel. Gav's going to run a little bit wide. And as we are on board with the Williams driver around the outside, he looks to go. Maybe a little bit of contact between the two drivers. And they are still wheel to wheel through the middle sector. Behind this is Josh, who is up from the back of the grid, already to 7th, and is now wheel-to-wheel with Jokies, and does manage to take the position. I believe there was contact there, but manages to get through. Josh is up to 6th. But out in front, Michela with the dream start. 1.2 seconds ahead now. Great stuff from the Sauber driver, and he is in the lead. But interestingly enough, he is on soft tyres. And we saw the degradation on the softs during the sprint. That wouldn't have been my strategy choice, I will tell you that. Both Aston Martins in 2nd and 3rd on the hard compounds. We've then got Dan Lovett, Gavboy and Josh, who are 4th, 5th and 6th, all on the mediums. With Jokies on the hards. And we've got a car out already, and that's Meldrum. And that's on the main straight. So I don't know what's happened there. He must have gone into the back of a car or something. But we do have a safety car deployed. And that will really help the likes of Michela, who now get to stabilise. He's taken the lead at the start. Now, where do you go? Those soft tyres will inevitably last longer under the safety car as we're not going full speed. And everyone in the race can now figure out where they are. Eltheniel comes in to serve his penalty and changes front wing. I have no grip, and Sheldon also into the box. But let's look at the position change. Then we've got Michela up 1, Sean down 1. That was the change for the lead. We've then got Gavboy, who is up a position. Josh is up 8 off the grid. Incredible stuff from the Alpine. Kevin Baker dropping 3 positions. Bruiser dropping 2, with Sheldon gaining 2, and Altheniel down 3, obviously having to make that pit stop. But the strategy is always going to pay dividends around a track like Qatar, and it is going to be very interesting to see what all the drivers do here. I don't believe none of the top 3 or top 4 have damage, so let's see if anyone does decide to come into the pits. Obviously the pit lane revamped on last year's game. You don't come into the pits at this corner, you go into the pits here. And Michela is entering the pit lane. Nobody else follows him. Dan Lovett almost baiting it a bit and does go in last minute. Dan Lovett diving into the pits at the very last second. So it is going to be an Aston Martin 1-2 that will lead us. Josh stays out and takes 3rd place, with Jokies in 4th. Kevin Baker will move up to 5th, with Paul Codd in 6th. And then Michela, Dan Lovett, Gavboy and Bruiser all into the pit lane. Michela obviously the lead runner there. The softs got him away well off the line, but I don't think that was the right strategy, because pitting this early isn't going to give him a massive tyre delta, and he finds himself in 7th place with a lot of cars to overtake if he wants to retake the lead of this race. Sean will now find himself back where he started in 1st. His teammate Finjo right behind him. Josh from the back of the grid up to 3rd. We will look at the position change again. Up 11 places is Josh, right where he belongs at the front of the field. We've got Wizjokies in 4th, who is driving a very good weekend so far. We've got Kevin Baker in 5th, Paul Codd in 6th. Michela will then come and rejoin the field in 7th. Dan Lovett right behind him in 8th. Gavboy in 9th. Sheldon opted to go onto the softs and will be P10. I have no grip, who was looking very quick in qualifying, is P11. Bruiser is P12. Altheniel 13th. And then that very mysterious crash down the main straight, taking Meldrum out of it. I would really love to know what happened there, and I will see if we can get comment from Meldrum. Having a look now. Apparently Meldrum did get taken out. I will try and push for further comment from the Alpine driver and see what happened. And we have just posed a question to Meldrum to see what happened. He said that he was completely taken out of the Grand Prix. That is obviously not what we want to hear for the Alpine driver. But I'm sure he will be back next week to try and right those wrongs. But under the lights here in Qatar tonight, we do have a safety car. You would imagine it will be in this lap. We've got Gavboy, who comes back into the pits for a set of mediums, which is quite interesting. Not really sure what that's about. But we will have the two Aston Martins lead. I believe we are getting a reply from Meldrum. I will bring that info to you as soon as I get it. But like I say, we would imagine that the safety car will be in this lap. And the Aston Martin safety car will peel away, leaving the Aston Martin F1 car driven by Sean to take the reins of the pack. Now it is a very long straight here at Qatar. The line comes up quite early. So you want to make sure that you go at the perfect time. Meldrum has said he was going for a move on Sheldon and he dives last minute to the pit lane, taking him out. So contact obviously between Meldrum and Sheldon, Red Bull and Alpine coming together. And that is the reason we have this safety car. But here we are then. The safety car is in this lap. And the Aston Martin of Sean prepares to go. Now, when does the Aston move along? That is the interesting question. We will ride on board with him. And he has decided to go out of the final corner. But his teammate is right with him, as is Josh. They are all through cleanly. And beginning lap 5, we can go racing once again. Finn is gaining on his teammate. And towards turn 1, there isn't a move opening up. Josh, obviously on the medium tyres, will want to get on with this as quick as possible. Wiz Jokies in 4th as we see Sheldon making up moves on the soft compound tyres on Dan Lovett. There is contact as he bullies his way past the Haas driver. And I'm sure Dan Lovett won't be happy about that. But on the soft tyres, it might just be a case of you've got to let Sheldon go and get that position back when those tyres die out. All square out in front, but the Alpine on the mediums looking to gain position. Like I say, he will want to get on with this on those softer tyres. Nothing doing for him yet, though, as we do have yellow flags waving. I'm not sure what for, as I can't see any incidents on track. Altheniel and Gavboy quite a way behind the pack, but they are doing battle. And it all starts to slowly even out now. Kevin Baker gaining on Wiz Jokies. Again, on medium tyres, we've got Sheldon looking to put pressure on Michela, who was obviously leading before the safety car, then pitted for the hard compound tyres. And that would compound his issues even more if the Red Bull were able to get past, gaining a hell of a lot under braking. But Michela is very, very close to the back of the McLaren. Pulls out of the slipstream and alongside the Papaya McLaren and down into turn 1. Michela makes the move stick. And an incredibly opportunist move from Sheldon goes down the inside of the McLaren and now is wheel-to-wheel with Michela. What a move this would be if the Red Bull could make it stick, and they're still wheel-to-wheel as we come through the first sector. Softs on the Red Bull, Michela on the hards, and what a move from the Red Bull driver. He manages to make it stick. Incredible stuff from Sheldon, past the long-time race leader and Kevin Baker almost at once, and now going up the inside of Wiz Jokies. The softs working incredibly well on the Red Bull, and he moves himself up to 4th. In the midst of all that, Josh on the mediums in the Alpine has managed to get past Finn, who has also picked up a 3-second time penalty. But action all up and down the field. So far, Sheldon dominating. Unbelievable stuff from the Red Bull driver. Absolutely flying here in the heat in Qatar. Now the question is, who is going to be best poised to attack out of the front 3? Finn is closer, but Josh has the better tyres and DRS, and Sean does not have any battery, and he is gaining towards turn 1. We'll ride on board with Sean's teammate through turn 1. There isn't enough of a gap, but that has really pulled Josh into that window. McKellar has managed to get through on Wiz Jokies and up to 5th position, and now chasing down Sheldon once more after that scintillating overtake through turn 1 and then the first sector, moving him up a couple of places. That would definitely be one of my moves of the season here in NRRL. But Josh is starting to slowly gain on the leaders. On those medium tyres, we know that the tyre deg is quite bad around Qatar. We saw it in the sprint, and we know it just based off of the nature of the track. But the mediums thus far are working well for Josh, and he is doing his best to put some pressure on the leaders. He split the Aston Martins after one lap of racing, and now is very, very close to Sean. He will have DRS this lap. He runs very wide through that corner. You'd imagine that that would be a warning. He does lose a little bit of time for it. But as we now come to the main straight, Josh will be poised to strike. But Sean has a hell of a lot more battery to be deploying. The DRS enables itself now. And here comes Josh then towards turn 1. Is he able to make the move down the inside? He's just not close enough. But he is much, much closer. Kevin Baker manages to get through on Wiz Jokies, and Dan Lovett is involved in this 3-car battle as well, as Wiz Jokies takes back the position. Kevin Baker now looking to defend from Dan Lovett, but Dan Lovett is doing his utmost best to try and get past. And now Kevin Baker coming back at Wiz Jokies, and there is massive contact between the McLaren and the Haas, and there is damage on Dan Lovett's front wing. Maybe just not expecting Kevin to brake so early, but because of the dirty air and being so close to the Williams driver, having to brake early, and Dan Lovett with damage, and damage really does harm you around this track. In the midst of all that, Finn has actually managed to get past Josh. So incredible stuff up at the front. Aston Martin running 1-2 once more. McKellar is starting to gain on this battle. He got past Sheldon, and he is looking to put the pressure on the leaders once more. Now, to the main straight we go again to begin lap 9 of 29. 20 laps to go in this Grand Prix. Is Finn close enough to try and put a move on his teammate? Is Josh close enough to try and take back second? To the outside of turn 1 he looks. Better grip for the medium tyres at the moment, it would seem. Just not enough space. Is he now going to look down the inside? We get a big bit blocked there by the grandstands. Finn placing that car exactly where it needs to be and maintains second place. McKellar, all the while, is gaining. Those softs on Sheldon's car are definitely starting to die out as we see Josh pick up a 3-second penalty. And that hands the big portion of the lead to Sean. McKellar, like I say, gaining in the Sauber. He was the race leader before he boxed under that early safety car. He was running the softs, is now running the hards. I doubt you'd be able to make those go to the end, but he is doing well thus far. Really reeling in the 3 leaders who are DRS training each other every single lap. Sheldon, like I say, starting to fall off. We've got Kevin Baker and Dan Lovett really battling here. Dan managed to get back past the McLaren driver, but with that damage, Dan will be struggling in the Haas. Here we go down the main straight again then. Is there any cause for a move between the 2 Astons? Finn is really starting to gain, and on lap 10, the Astons change hands. Finn takes the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix, and Sean does not fight it. He gives up the position. He knows Finn is quicker in this stage of the race, with the 3-second penalty as well. Aston still 1 and 2, but it is Finn who now leads from Sean. Josh still in 3rd. McKellar is now within the DRS duct of Josh, so he is now well and truly within this fight, making it a 4-car fight for the lead. Kevin Baker picks up a time penalty ahead of Dan Lovett. They are just falling off the back of Wiz Jokies, who is slowly starting to reel in Sheldon on the soft. Elsewhere, up and down the griddle, we do see Dan Lovett trying to have a go on Kevin Baker as Kevin went very, very wide. But then we have Paul Codd, who is just about a second behind Bruiser. Gavboy is starting to reel in the Ferrari and gain on him. Altheniel running a very lonely race down in P13, 50-odd seconds behind the rest of the field. Naturally, in 7th gear down the main straight, so definitely not a lot of pace for him. But to the main straight we go again. Is Sean looking to attack? He's deploying the ERS. He has the DRS. And 1 lap from when it was taken from him, Sean round the outside at turn 1 reclaims the lead. McKellar and Josh have to follow suit for the time being. Sheldon still losing time to these top 4. Dan Lovett and I Have No Grip managed to get past Kevin Baker. That is for 7th and 8th place. Kevin will try and fight this one out, but not enough grip on the mediums for the McLaren, and he will have to give up those positions. And Finn and Josh are now really fighting as Josh pulls wheel to wheel with the Aston, looks to go around the outside. Is there enough room? Somehow they don't make contact, and McKellar will be watching this, rubbing his hands together as he tries to look for a gap and a way through, as we see Bruiser picking up a 3-second time penalty. Josh really beginning to attack now, and that is just letting Sean get some fresh air and start to breathe out in the lead. Lap 11 of 29 of this Qatar Grand Prix, and Josh running over the curb there. You'd imagine that would be a warning. McKellar very close behind and with a lot of battery. So could we see a change for the final podium position here? Because McKellar is draining. Josh is draining too though. And it doesn't look like there will be a gap opening up. That gap in the lead for Sean was just enough for him to maintain it. Josh, obviously the only car in the top 4 on the mediums. And you would imagine they will begin to wear out soon. He's been on them since the start. He will not be wanting to stay on those for too much longer as Finn goes very wide behind his teammate. The top 4 really battling for position, and we see Gavboy battling away with Bruiser in the Red Bull, manages to make the move stick. Gavboy is up into 10th and now sets his sights on his teammate about 8 seconds ahead of him. You would have to imagine soon that McKellar will want to get past Josh. Like I say, those tyres for Josh, the medium compound tyres, will be dying out relatively soon. We know that the tyred egg around Qatar can be catastrophic, no pun intended, and he will want to see the back of those tyres any time soon. So we come around the final corner now to move on to lap 13 of 29. And we see Josh dive into the pits. McKellar ran very wide out of that final corner. But Josh into the pits, as well as Sheldon, who did a good stint on those soft tyres, gained a lot of places. We now see what happens as Finn does retake the lead from Sean. So the Astons, no team orders down at Aston Martin today. The Silverstone-based team battling away with each other. Finn now again becomes the lead Aston Martin. Sean is in second. McKellar in third after Josh's pit stop. He goes on to the hards. You would imagine that will be to the end of the Grand Prix. Same with Sheldon. You would imagine they will be on those until the checkered flag. Finn, Sean and McKellar really your leaders here, as they have 11 seconds of a gap to I Have No Grip, who then has Wiz Jokies about 8 tenths behind him. Dan Lovett is also in that fight for 4th place. Kevin Baker and Gavboy and Bruiser all looking to gain positions on the mediums. But out in the lead, 3 cars battling for it. McKellar just somewhat starting to fall off the back of this. just a tiny bit. He does technically have fresher tyres. Interestingly, though, they are coming up to lap Althenial. Will Finn have DRS? Yes, he will. But Sean looks for the undercut. So that would have really helped Finn if he'd have had to defend against Sean. But he won't, because Sean blinks first out of the Aston Martins into the pits for a set of the medium compound tyres, held for a bit after the pit stop. As here we see Dan Lovett having a go on with Jokies and into turn 1, taking the position away from the Williams. Michela, like I say, is starting to fall back, which you wouldn't really expect because he is on 2 lap fresher tyres than Finn, but Finn evidently with a lot of pace in that Aston Martin. Now, intriguingly, will that almost trigger a domino effect? Sean pitting onto the mediums, a very high-speed circuit this, so the undercut very, very powerful. Will Michela or his teammate Finn come into the pits at the end of this lap? Strategy could be what decides this race, and this is it. It should only be a one-stop race. It's a 50% Grand Prix, and we are nearing half-race distance as Michela picks up a 3-second penalty. We now come to the final corner. Is anyone diving into the pits? No. The 2 leaders stay out. Finn, Joe and Michela both stay out in the lead. We look at the penalties. We've got Finn and Michela, who both have penalties. Josh picks up a penalty as well, and he's now on 6 seconds. Sean is the only one of the leaders to not have a corner cutting penalty, and that will pay dividends come the end of the race, because if it is as close as it has been, it will be decided by the penalties, and Sean will be the man that is gaining that. Sean and Josh move ahead of Gavboy, as does Sheldon as he comes into the pits. But Sean on the mediums, Josh on the hards, both looking to gain time and undercut the 2 leaders. Michela is starting to reel in Finn a little bit, whether there's been a little bit of a mistake for the Aston Martin driver, or whether those tyres are starting to feel a bit of an effect after being on that car for 14 laps now. We do not know. However, Michela is starting to somewhat close that gap and get well within the DRS duct, although it is hovering right around the 1 second gap now. And it does look like he might just get it. Is he going to be able to? I believe he did. Will any of them come into the pits this lap, though? Again, no. So both the leaders staying out for another lap, trying to get the tyre offset. And that is going to be crucial for this race. Michela did get the DRS down the main straight. And here we go then. I have no grip. Is looking to come up to lap his teammate, and that will be a horrible feeling for Althenial. He's been lapped by the 2 leaders. Next car to lap him as he goes very wide at turn 1, and his teammate does lap him. Sean sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, with Jokies is right behind Dan Lovett in 4th position. Sean gaining a hell of a lot of time, but the crucial thing to look at is obviously with the tyre wear being so heavy around this track, all of them you would imagine will go on to medium tyres. I can't imagine anyone staying out till the end, especially the likes of Finn Joe. But the tyre offset could be massive. As much as Sean is going to gain a hell of a lot of time by doing this undercut, Michela and Finn will have the tyre offset, and that could be crucial in terms of pace. Although, saying that, Michela does have a bit of a tyre offset on Finjo and isn't actually gaining that much. He doesn't have much battery and did not get the DRS on this lap. He is very, very close to the Aston Martin, as we see Josh already picking up another time penalty. He is now on 9 seconds of penalties, I do believe. As we see there, a car barreling into the pits. Dan Lovett and Wiz Jokies are the 2 cars there. So they are 2 cars that Sean won't have to overtake, and he will be overjoyed with that. He's then got a 10-second gap to I Have No Grip. If we look at the leader interval, Sean is 25 seconds behind the leader. And that is going to be crucial for this race as Paul Codd takes the position away from Wiz Jokies and Dan Lovett. Dan Lovett, I believe, changing that front wing, and that's why Wiz Jokies has come out that far ahead. And yes, Dan Lovett has changed that front wing on the Haas. He decided enough was enough and repairs the front wing. McKellar is starting to stick with Finn though, and should be on course to get DRS this lap. Interestingly enough though, the gap isn't really coming down between Sean and his teammate. McKellar will have DRS on this lap to try and gain on the leader Finjo. He doesn't have much battery, neither does Finn. Towards turn 1 he is going to gain. Is the straight long enough for McKellar though? It isn't. He just needed about 100 meters more of straight line and he would have had that move done. But nothing doing for the Sauber. But like I say, Sean isn't gaining too much on these guys, and that is going to be very interesting because the undercut may not be working. 25 seconds, I don't think a pit stop's that long, and I believe with this overcut, Finn and McKellar, when they box, would come out ahead of Sean, which is incredibly interesting. I Have No Grip is falling off of the back of this battle. Josh is actually starting to gain on Sean. Interestingly, Josh on the hards, Sean on the mediums. Have the mediums already seen their best laps? You wouldn't assume so, but that will be something to keep an eye on. That is the closest battle at the minute besides the leaders, but the leaders are very close to each other, and McKellar has really gained on this lap, whether it was a mistake from Finn or whether McKellar has started to put his foot down. He is really beginning to gain and is very, very close to the Aston, who now is going to have to defend for his life. But he doesn't have the battery to do it. And on lap 20, for the first time in this Qatar Grand Prix since the opening lap, McKellar takes the lead once more and is back up front. Finn will try and fight it back, but just doesn't have the resource to be able to do so. And McKellar does reclaim that lead finally. Now, interestingly, when will they come into pit? I do believe that McKellar will have to pit. We do see that McKellar... No, McKellar won't have to pit because he started on the softs, didn't he? So if McKellar wanted, he would be able to stay out till the end. The question is, will those tyres go to the end? Finn, we know, will 100% have to box as he has not stopped yet. I Have No Grip technically doesn't. It just depends about the tyre allocation, whether they've been on 2 sets. But Finn will definitely have to box. Do we think that McKellar can take those tyres to the end? That will be the point that we need to find out, as surely any lap soon these guys will be into the pits if they decide they need to, and they both are on the same lap. So McKellar and Finn both into the pit lane. Now, interestingly, will Sean be able to come out ahead, or will McKellar and Finn retain their lead? They've got about a 6-lap overcut on Sean. I Have No Grip takes the lead, and Sean is going to overtake them both, and the undercut has worked a treat. Josh also overtakes them. Finn onto soft compound tyres. That's an interesting strategy. McKellar onto the mediums. And this is really going to throw a spanner into the works here. As if we look now, we've got McKellar, who is 2.5 seconds off of Josh, who is 1.2 off of Sean. I Have No Grip is about 5 seconds ahead of Sean. I really could not call this race. With 9 laps to go of this Qatar Grand Prix, it is looking very difficult to predict a winner. Finn on the soft will be lightning quick for the opening few laps, but we saw them drop off very, very quickly when Sheldon had them on. While we have a tiny bit of a break in the action, we will take a look to the penalties. I have no grip, your current leader, with 6 seconds. We have Josh on 12, Michaela and Finjo on 3, with Jokies on 6. Dan Lovett is one of 2 drivers to not have any penalties, so big props to him and Sean. Kevin Baker and Gavboy, both McLarens, on 6 seconds. Sheldon on 22 seconds of penalties. Bruiser is on 6 seconds. Paul Codd on 3 seconds. And Altheniel on 12. Josh is starting to gain again, though, on Sean. McKellar is really starting to gain on Josh. A massive difference of tyres, for the entire grid. And it's all about who will have the grip come the final couple of laps. Finn needs to try and get into the DRS on this lap. He will not want to let McKellar get pulled away by Josh, who is in the DRS of Sean as well. And collectively, those 3 are starting to gain on I Have No Grip, who is in the lead. Sean, Josh, McKellar, and now Finn joining the fight. They are going to be battling it out. You wouldn't imagine I Have No Grip is going to stay out. And even if he does have those time penalties. But this is now going to be a straight fight to the end. Sean is the only one without penalties. And Sean is back into the pits. Lap 22 of the Grand Prix. Finjo sets the fastest lap of the race. McKellar gets through on Josh. Finn is also having a look down the inside and does make the move stick. So Josh is down 2 places. Finn is up and is McKellar. But Sean back into the pits again. Has he just thrown this race away? You would have imagined those mediums would have been able to stick to the end. Just stick with them in the DRS. They've all got penalties and you've won it. And has Sean now thrown it away? He's 25 seconds off of Josh. There's surely no way he can gain that time back. There's just not enough laps left. So now over to you, McKellar, Finn and Josh, as they are massively gaining on the V-carb of I Have No Grip. McKellar is the lead car in this fight on the mediums. Finn on the softs will have much more grip at this stage of the race. Josh, who is on the hards, falling off of this battle. And Finn does have much more battery as well as we head down the main straight. McKellar will not have the DRS and I Have No Grip. Now comes into the pits. It is over to these 2 to fight. They both have the same amount of penalties. And here comes the Aston Martin. To the outside of turn 1 he goes. And on lap 23 of 29, Finjo retakes the lead of the Qatar Grand Prix from McKellar. Both of them on 3 seconds of penalties. That is a move for net position. And Finn does take it. And all he's got to pray now is that he, A, doesn't get any more penalties, and B, that those those soft tyres manage to hold on until the checkered flag. We know he's going to be lightning quick, and what he needs to do now, while he still has life in those tyres, is pull away as much as he can. Get out the DRS and get the gap. So inevitably, when the soft tyres do die out, he will have that buffer. But McKellar is using battery and is sticking with the Aston Martin as we go through the 3rd sector now. The medium's working well on the Sauber. And he really is starting to reel in Finjo, who is a lot more healthy battery-wise. But for position, McKellar is very, very close. And down the main straight we go now. The DRS flap opens on the rear wing, and Finn is not going to have much to contest with down the inside. But Finn does take a very, very wide line. Massive traction on the soft tyres, and he does manage to defend his position. Very, very smart driving from the Aston Martin driver. He manages to retain the lead, and if he can do that for another 5 laps, he will be the inaugural winner in the Monday 50% series. We knew that he was quick. He was leading the sprint and really should have won it, but ran out of fuel on the line. That win then went to Sean, who I believe has made a massive mistake with his strategy today. Pitted very early, should have then stayed out on the mediums, but boxed again, came out 25 seconds behind the rest of the field, and there is not a chance that he will have the time to gain now. He can do his best to try and get in the penalty duct of Josh, who is currently standing on the last step of the podium, but Michela and Finn fighting this one out. We see Gavboy getting past his teammate Kevin into turn 1. Towards turn 1 we go now with Michela on board with the Sauber. He is looking to make his own move into turn 1, but Finn, just with enough battery, deploying all the while, does manage to hold on, and he is doing enough on those soft tyres to take home the win. Michela is putting massive amounts of pressure on him, and fair play to Finn, he is not cracking. It would be very, very easy for him to crack under the pressure, to go wide, get a penalty, have a spin, maybe a bit of contact, but he is holding his stuff very, very well and is getting very close to being the inaugural winner here in the Monday 50% division. Soft tyres still working well for Finn, as we're now just behind the helmet of Michela, riding on board with the Sauber driver. And he is doing absolutely everything he can to try and get that Aston Martin. Josh has really fallen off of this battle. Sean, just the wrong strategy at the end of the day for the Aston Martin driver. Managed to win the sprint after a massive hand of big luck with his teammate running out of fuel. Took pole position for both events, and unfortunately for the main event, he will not be able to call himself a winner, and may even slip down further, as I Have No Grip is starting to gain on him. Dan Lovett is in 6th, and as we look towards turn 1 now, Michela and Finn are wheel to wheel again, and this time it does look like Michela has managed to muscle his way through. There was contact on the rear diffuser. Is there damage on that Aston? I can't see, but he is trying now to go down the inside. Both cars undamaged, and they do again make a little bit more contact, but they are giving each other enough racing room. Round the outside on the softs goes the Aston, and even more contact as they now drive in a straight line. Down the inside goes Finn. Michela, will he have to back out? He doesn't want to. He gives the Aston a shove towards the inside. They are still wheel to wheel. This is incredible stuff from the Aston and the Sauber, battling away, and Michela finally makes the move stick, but not for long, as here we go again through the third sector. They've nearly been wheel to wheel the entire lap, and somehow Finn has managed to muscle his way through, but he's used all his battery doing it. Now over to you, Michela, with more battery, with the DRS. On to lap 27 we go, and surely this will be like taking candy from a baby as he moves to the inside, and Michela finally makes the move stick on the Aston Martin and gets through into the lead. Incredible battle between this top two, wheel to wheel for nearly an entire lap, and somehow Michela manages to get through. And is that the best of Finn that we've seen on those soft compound tyres? Sean and I Have No Grip are battling away with each other. 5/10 is the gap. I have no grip with a lot more penalties. So unfortunately, even if he does overtake, he probably will not retain that position. Finn is still within the DRS gap that he needs to be to try and beat McKellar. But he is just right on the edge of it, and he is somewhat falling out of it now as we come towards the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix. 9.8 is the gap now, and it's just going to keep creeping up. He's using the battery to try and stay in it. And there is a lapped car in the way, and will that mean that McKellar maybe gets DRS from the Ferrari of Paul Codd as we come down the main straight? Unfortunately for McKellar, he won't, but Finn will. And he is deploying, and he is going to get closer to the Sauber. Unfortunately for him, I don't think it is close enough, and it is not, as we enter the penultimate lap of the Qatar Grand Prix. This has been an absolutely amazing race from these drivers. An incredible battle from the front to the mid-pack, and we've now got a yellow flag, and that was Eltheniel who was round at the final corner. A horrible day for Eltheniel. 1 minute 31 seconds off of Bruiser, and he will be a lap down as well. McKellar manages to negotiate his way past the lapped car of Paul Codd, and Finn Joe does exactly the same as Paul Codd runs very, very wide there. On track, we don't have many other battles. We've got I Have No Grip and Sean, but obviously with the penalties, that will not matter. This is the battle we want to be watching, both on 3 seconds of penalties. And surely this is going to be the last chance that Finn will have. Both on relatively the same amount of battery. Is Finn going to have one last shot at victory? On to the final lap we go then. The DRS is enabled, and he is gaining towards the Sauber. He is gaining, and he looks to the inside of the Sauber. They are wheel to wheel through turn 1, and there is contact as we now enter the closing stages. This is it. And somehow, McKellar manages to stay ahead. There was a lot of contact between the two drivers. I don't think Finn will be very happy about that, as he now runs very, very wide. And the soft tyres have definitely seen their best days. Is there going to be one last opportunity for Finn to try and get past the Sauber? Or is it to be McKellar's day? We've seen a massive turn of pace from McKellar in the last week or so. He won and dominated F2 on Saturday. He was incredible in qualifying and the Grand Prix on Sunday. And on Monday, in the opening round, he has absolutely flown. The strategy has been perfect. His driving has been magnificent. And McKellar will finally be able to call himself a winner in a Formula 1 car. He dominated F2, but F1 is a different beast. And McKellar rounds the final corner for Sauber and wins the Qatar Grand Prix under the lights tonight. Finn Joe, who led for a long, long time, will come home to take second place. Josh manages to drag his Alpine to third. Sean, our pole sitter, with the wrong strategy today, is going to drag it home for fourth place. Aston Martin scoring a lot of points in the Constructors. I Have No Grip will finish in fifth. Dan Lovett is in sixth, with Sheldon, who will inevitably drop as he is on 28 seconds of penalties. Wiz Jokies will inevitably finish seventh after that, and does so in the Williams. We now look to Kevin Baker and Gav Boys. Paul Codd finishes 11th. Bruiser finishes 12th. Eltheniel 13th. And Meldrum, in his words, taken out by Sheldon tonight. McLaren finished 9 and 10. Close to each other on track. Kevin Baker 9th. And Gav Boy 10th. And that is your lot for tonight's race here in Qatar. A thrilling race with action all throughout. Drama, safety car, and quality. And Michele rises to the top and can finally call himself a Formula One race winner. That is your lot then tonight from NRRL, and there are your standings. Michele finishes second in the sprint and takes home the win in the Grand Prix. Finn takes home the second most amount of points. We will just quickly show you the actual race results as we have Michele winning from Finn, Josh, Sean, I Have No Grip, Dan, Wiz, Sheldon, Kevin, Gavboy, Paul Cod, Bruiser, Eltheniel, and Meldrum failing to reach the flag. They are the results of the sprint, with Sean taking the win after Finn's late drama. And there are your results for the weekend. Michele wins out ahead of Finn, Aston Martin 2 and 3, Josh 4th, Dan Lovett 5th. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight here in NRRL. It has been a pleasure. My name is Jack. I have been your commentator. We will be back on Wednesday, which will be ran by Connor. That will be a short qualifying followed by a 50% race. If you are new, please do drop a follow down below. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you on Wednesday for some more incredible NRRL action, the fastest growing league in F1 League Racing. Take care.